Welcome to the show. I'm Doug Johnson, and this is The Business of Life. During each show, we highlight a member of the community who has strategies for success that they are willing to share. Today's guest is a 35-year-old entrepreneur who is doing just amazing things that when I grew up, I had never thought of. Chris Hatala is event director and final boss, get that, final boss of a company called Games Done Legit. So Chris, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks Doug. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Well, you're welcome. I'm really happy that you're here. You represent a totally different viewpoint from folks in our generation, and I think you really have a lot to share with folks. So first off, tell us your backstory. Where did you come from? How did you get to what you're doing, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so I'm from Cleveland, grew up only child, was obsessed with video games since I was a little kid. It was kind of like my main escapism. I was brought up to be really competitive by my family, but I'm also like the shortest kid. I was super short and skinny and like nerdy and everything. So video games are this arena that it doesn't matter like how big you are or how strong you are. You're competing basically like with your wits, but also your reflexes essentially. Mm-hmm. And just became the thing that I like really gravitated to. And basically through that love of gaming, I started running like competitive gaming events for games that I enjoyed and would like travel the country and play. And through these competitive gaming events, I realized how video games, especially for like my generation, the Gen Xers, and also like everybody underneath my generation, basically like Gen Y and the kids, in high school now, like everyone's grown up with video games as part of culture. The effect that these games have had on pop culture and how they can be like this unifying force from people who maybe don't have anything else in common except they love, these games or the series. So we basically use that love of gaming to make work and education more fun through our company, Games Done Legit.
Okay, cool. So go back to a little bit you said, or in some of our discussions, you have talked several times about being short, nerdy, unruly hair, so on and so forth. And you didn't really get along with others your age. How did you get into the video games from that? And then, in today's society, that could be really considered almost a form of bullying. So how did you get yourself into the video games, and how did you become an accepted part of your school group?
Yeah, so I pretty much just grew up never wanting to attract any attention to myself, because I just got used to in grade school. So I didn't have brothers or sisters to tell me to like, shut up about like video games and, it's your favorite thing. And it's just like what I wanted to talk about as like a only child who got, unlimited attention, at home from like my family and everything. But, that's just how kids are. No kid wants to have attention on themselves. So I think kids just naturally, tease other kids and everything. But I just didn't really know how to like deal with it just because I didn't, have other like brothers or sisters have like any kind of like go between with or like two of my best friends. I grew up in Garfield Heights here in Cleveland. They were twins and they had a sister and they like tease each other and they would like tease me a ton about like video games, but obviously they would just tease each other back.
Right.
But I just kind of like took it all like really personally.
Okay.
So that's just kind of how I grew up, and it's weird to think about it in the lens of like bullying, because I wasn't getting my head like held over toilets or anything like that, but it was just just like verbal. I just didn't want like the class or even like a couple kids just like laughing at me about they would just like tease me about, I can't even like say it on camera, like some stuff they used to say to me. But so I would go, so my grandparents or my mom would take me like the arcade, like Randall Park Mall or downtown Cleveland.
Sure.
And I was really good at these competitive games where you have your controls and you're controlling character on screen, you're fighting against the person next to you, at the machine, these competitive games. And I was really good at them. So these kids from like, very different backgrounds than me. I'm this short white kid, from suburbia. These kids from like, from Randall and like downtown Cleveland and everything, Cleveland City schools, who I was like totally afraid of because I didn't have kids like this like in my school or anything. And I was used to just being made fun of all the time by other kids. But they would just want to talk to me about the game, like, oh man, your Shang Tsung is like really awesome in like Mortal Kombat, or have you played, this game over here? I think you'd be really good with this character. And they would just talk to me like a normal person, and I didn't have that experience anywhere else, like as a kid. So that's kind of solidified this, very strong belief I have now about how like gaming can just be like this really cool like unifying force for people who don't maybe have anything else in common, and you can leverage that for like workplace communication and and education, like we talked about reaching kids
Right.
through like the rap program that you did with them, and it's kind of what we try to do with games. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, it does. So then you took your abilities and became really good at video games, and you and a friend started doing competitions,
yeah.
right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so only child let me kind of zero in on the things that I really wanted to zero in on. And now that I'm an adult, we actually found out I have ADHD. So it makes extra sense that the things that I like, I get like really, really into.
Okay.
So video games, I just take very seriously and, just train and kind of like get better at them and everything. And then, so through college, happenstance, they started having like tournaments for one of these games that I played, and then I would like win the tournament every week at like the donut shop, like at Ohio State. And these other guys found out, oh man, there's someone really, really good at Street Fighter who's like winning all these tournaments. So I met this other group, and then they told me, oh, there's people who travel all over the country just there's like a little bit of money, but really just for fun to play these games, competitively. Just like there's NFL teams who, travel around, it's like a job for these people. They travel around the country and you get to play this game. We were doing that, but just on like an underground, like grassroots level for like these certain kinds of video games. So we kind of got into the scene, and my friend, who's a bit older than me, he had run national like b-boy competitions, like breaking, popping, locking, like all that crazy stuff. And so he knew how to kind of put like special events together, essentially.
Okay.
So we started one in Ohio, and it became like the second biggest tournament in the world for
Wow.
this kind of game. And so we would fly out people from like Europe and like Japan, and we would like have like like dream matches, like, oh, we're gonna have like Team United States versus like Team Japan, and put like these grudge matches together and just try to have fun with it, and do things that other people really hadn't thought of, and that enabled us to grow. And if you're passionate about anything, people take notice of that, and you're gonna be a lot better at it than someone who's just doing it for a side hustle or something. So
Right.
yeah, so it was fun. We did that for 7 years.
Wow. And then how did you get from there to Games Done Legit?
Yeah, so I kind of realized this gaming can be this unifying force, for a lot of people like me. Yeah, I mean, tons of stories like that from this competitive gaming community alone that I came from. And so I kind of realized, man, what if I could do this for a living? And there's this thing called esports now, which is like
Okay.
electronic sports. People playing games professionally, in like leagues, and like drawing a salary and like representing sponsors. It was like never gonna happen for the kind of game that we play, just because I spent like 2 years trying to get all these people from around the world to like, work together and be like, hey, if we were at an actual tournament circuit, you could go to Dr. Pepper and ask for like a $2 million sponsorship, and that, means we could all do this for a job. But, for a lot of people, it was ego. It's the most like ridiculous things you can imagine. It's like I'm sure everyone, can think of like any hobby that, they grew up with and just you take super seriously. No one else in the entire world
Yeah, you're
cares about
passionate
this
about
little,
Right, yeah.
this little thing that you guys do, but you take it super seriously because you're passionate about it. So that's, where we were with these games. So I realized I want to do something involving getting people together, seeing them have a good time with games. So I started learning about like the special events industry, because I couldn't find a job basically off of my nonprofit experience and running this event every year. I mean, I thought it looked okay on paper. It's like a $16,000 event. We got X dollars in sponsorships. 700 people. Here's all the stuff we did for it. But I just couldn't. No one would hire me as an event coordinator. So I just worked as like a server on the east side in an events venue called Landerhaven, and there I was exposed to like high dollar corporate events and like
Right.
Indian weddings and big corporate team building events and corporate meetings, and being able to work on these events and also, basically make friends with the party planners and the event coordinators.
Right.
Because I figured out finally what I love to do is just, put on events and make people happy, basically. And people just kept encouraging me with, oh, this weird, I expected people to not take me seriously at all. Be like, well, oh, you ran some video game tournament? We run real events over here, kid, But people in this events community were just so nice to me, and everyone kept giving me ideas like, oh, wow, like that would be great for bar mitzvah entertainment, or, oh, that would be fun like at at weddings, or this would be great for team building activities. So it was really just through the encouragement of like this special events community here in Cleveland, and all these people who just kind of, welcome me with open arms to this event society. It's called the International Live Events Association is the name of this networking group. And so they just encouraged me. So I was just like, I'll just quit my job and I'll start this thing. Let's see what happens.
Well, and when you did that, you developed kind of 3 different strings, if you will, to your business. So you do corporate training, you do work with schools, and then you do kind of the entertainment venue.
Yeah.
So, Chris, talk about each one of those, if you would, please.
Yeah, so, from like the corporate side, we basically are speaking to like traditional corporate needs, like training and employee appreciation. But instead of doing it like we do a lot of networking with HR professionals, and we ask them what kind of team building activities do they do, so we can figure out some of our services that might complement them. And they say stuff to me that doesn't sound like team building at all. Like they'll say, oh, like fun and stuff's right over here. They'll be like, oh yeah, we did go-karts, and we had a couple of people just run everyone off the road, and it didn't go very well. And it's like, well, in my head, it's like, I'm not surprised. That doesn't sound like a team building activity, because it sounds like an area where 2 people are going to be really good at it, and then just like railroad everybody else, and that's not working
everybody
as a
else
team.
falls off the track, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people, oh, we go to like the bar once a month, and like that's really nice, but when I think of team building or like good training, it's social. Nobody is at a big disadvantage, compared to like the rest of the team.
Makes sense.
Stuff like that. So we'd speak to those traditional needs, but we just do like, oh, we have 4-player versions of Pac-Man. Like anybody can play Pac-Man. You literally just have, 1 joystick and 4 people are working at the same time, and you're just going through a maze. Like anybody can do that. The technology is not a barrier to have fun, with this experience.
Right.
And the other cool thing that I like, and HR people seem to like out of our programs, is that using these electronic pieces of entertainment basically for these like communication exercises is that for a lot of teams where they have maybe like English as a second language, they have like an international team and stuff like that. Through games, it's like you think of Pac-Man moving through a maze, or you think of Mario, and he moves left to right in the screen and 1 button jumps, and like those are the only controls you have to worry about. We are able to have these programs where people have to communicate like very, very directly and in very non-complex language.
Yep.
And through these, basically like through these gaming activities and everything, we kind of see that happen. And it's actually a lot less technical than some of the programs we see, like building bicycles. I've seen as like one team building activity, which I think is really cool, but like I know personally I would suck at that because I don't enjoy the whole like building process, like building something from scratch. Like I have ADHD and I just like whatever is like right in front of me. I can do a small amount of steps like really well and I can get really into it, but managing like a whole project like that is just not in my wheelhouse. So does that kind of make sense? For like
It does.
So
you're doing the training there. You also work with schools, and what do you do with the schools?
Yeah, so even just last night we got to go to a Friends of like the Cleveland City School Districts event, and we were talking to the CEO of Eric Gordon. Just introduced myself like, oh, it's nice to meet you, Mr. Gordon. I follow you on LinkedIn, etc. And he had the idea, and I was so excited. I was like, oh, this is perfect, to basically have like a gaming league for like Cleveland City schools, because it's like just like the rap program, that you had mentioned. You had gone into a troubled classroom and we had the kids like perform like their own raps about like finding a job. Like,
Right.
what a great idea. Something that they're already interested in.
Right.
And create a program around something that's already fun, which was rap. So that's pretty much what we do with like corporate programs and like education. You take something that's was made to be fun first, like rap music or video gaming, and we design the program. We bake in whatever concepts that the school or like the company wants to, you know what I mean? Like so, like
Right.
leadership communication. We just have like a couple worksheets. That we
Sure.
work on before the activity. They do the activity, and we talk about it, and then they try it again, and they're better at it. So, yeah, it's exciting to use basically like leverage games and like electronic entertainment and just technology in general as a way to engage kids.
Well,
basically.
and then you also do just entertainment. So bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, birthday parties, and
Yeah.
and it's fun for the kids or the adults
Yeah,
who choose to
yeah.
participate.
Yeah.
Chris, there's something you said that really kind of triggered me a little bit, triggered my brain. Trick people into learning. So
yeah.
I think that that's kind of a really cool concept, and we think of tricking people as being a negative, but here we're using it in a really positive aspect in that we're having people do things that they enjoy, that's fun, and you and I have talked about, okay, it needs to be fun, and then they're learning from it. So that's really cool. I know that you have played guitar, and you have told me play piano better than guitar, and you sing. How does all that connect with gaming?
Yeah, it is funny for someone like me. I really am like like I live, breathe video gaming entertainment. It's like can't really tell you why, but that's just how I've been since a little kid. It's just fun to transport yourself in another world, and the connection to gaming. It's a really interesting thing if you talk about anyone who plays video games. You don't say like let's say you step up to a Pac-Man machine and you're controlling Pac-Man. You don't say, no one says like, oh, like Pac-Man got to the third board and then he got killed and he lost his last life. You say like, oh, I got to the fifth level, but then I died. So even just the language that we use about video games kind of gives you like a clue of what's must be going on psychologically, like our connection to like this digital world that we see at like on the television or in VR. So it's actually because of video games that I started playing guitar. Everyone is familiar with like Guitar Hero and Rock Band. They were really popular in the 2000s. There's Japanese music video games that they've been doing since the late 90s. That's actually where Guitar Hero came from. They literally just stole the idea from this other company who makes these Japanese rhythm games. I say steal in a good way because it's a cool game and everything. So I would play this Japanese guitar game at the arcade in Columbus at Ohio State, and I just liked how the sound of the guitar, and it's the same thing. You're just having like these three buttons and you're just strumming and everything, but the music is like coming out of the game and it feels like you're making these sounds happen. So I was like, man, this is just cool. So I'm gonna see if I can like learn some of these songs like in real life. So yeah, if it wasn't for this like ridiculous guitar, Japanese game, I never would have even picked up a real guitar. What's cool is a lot of people tell me that about like Guitar Hero and Rock Band that got them into like classic rock, and it even got them to like learn real guitar, stuff like that. And let's see. Oh yeah, more connections is that now, because people like me were very passionate about video games, we're like really into them. So now there's traveling orchestra shows that go around the whole world, and maybe they have all game music from all eras, or maybe they just have game music from this one video game series, that's been they've been making games for since the 80s. So like last year, I got to sing in this Legend of Zelda Symphony tour here in Cleveland, and it's just like, man, just seeing these 1980s graphics blown up on like the Playhouse Square stage and everything, like on this like giant video screen, and being able to like sing this music that I've been hearing, and like that started out as just like bleeps and bloops, from the original Nintendo in like 1986. It's just like, yeah, it was just a very like emotional, very, I don't know, just like an amazing connection that I just felt, and that's all a lot of people have this attachment to games, and it's really cool. So
nice. Chris, you mentioned VR, and you have a VR headset here. Can you show us that and tell us about virtual reality a little bit?
Yeah, so the tough thing about virtual reality is that seeing someone on a Samsung commercial or seeing someone, on a Channel 9 just like looking around with a headset on their face, you can see them smiling and laughing and being like, oh, I could see LeBron James, he's right in front of me. But none of that gives you any idea what it feels like to put on a VR headset. You can see that it seems fun and like cool, but the feeling of knowing you're here in this chair, but you see yourself in the Cavs victory parade and you're sitting next to LeBron James, you just can't really describe it. So it's really cool that the position that I'm in with the company and just the kind of stuff that we try to do like within the community, I get to do a lot of virtual reality demos to different industries. Like, geez, last week we were with Adventures in Northeast Ohio. It's a Northeast Ohio tourism networking group. Just showing them like, hey, like with this $300 headset that runs off of with the Samsung phone and everything, you can take people on all these amazing travel destinations. You can take someone to see a 360 video of the Greek Isles or the streets of Tokyo, or we can have people in VR walk around a museum that has every famous piece of art in the world, but it's all in the same museum, and you can get way closer than you can to the Mona Lisa in VR. You can put your nose right up to it. In real life, you're 50 feet away, and the Mona Lisa is like that big anyway.
Right, on the other side of the room, yeah. Cool. Chris, obviously you are passionate about what you're doing, and you've turned your passion into a livelihood, and you're still enjoying what you're doing and still practicing from what I understand. So talk with us and our audience, if you would. What are your top 3 strategies for success? You and I talked about this a little bit, and your number 1 was surround yourself with good people. So talk with us about that. Why is that one of your top 3?
Yeah, so definitely when you're trying to do, your own hustle and, you're working for yourself, you're putting your own, you're getting your own money to put your own food on the table and everything. I think you really have to discern a little bit more about who you have, not just in like your business sphere, but like in your personal life.
Okay.
Because a lot of times, doing your own thing, those are going to interact a lot more than maybe you want to.
Right.
And so the reason I only did this competitive event for 7 years, and part of this feeds into like our second point, but a big part of it was we just had all these different people who just wanted to do their own thing. It was ego is just like this thing that sometimes just transparently drives people. And it's just like, if you look at things logically or objectively, it makes no sense for someone to make the decisions that they do. And it's like the only answer can be their own ego, their own self-importance, or the self-importance of the event that they run, or their own sense of pride, or like whatever. So that's this like competitive gaming world that I came from. Like everyone was just like trying to stab each other in the back just as soon as like a little bit, the super tiny amount of money, like hundreds or like couple thousands of dollars, people just like stabbing each other in the back. No sense of like, hey, let's like work together and we'll create something bigger. And just not a healthy environment. You know what I mean? So when I was looking to, maybe just get involved in like the events industry, I also would encounter a lot of people who just had like random like side projects, like kind of like how we've encountered, each other, and we're talking about a couple of projects and things like that.
Sure.
I started to meet a lot of people who would basically were just completely trying to take advantage of like my time and like my back then innocent nature of just wanting to be helpful, and people asking me to do like all this like work for free, and this is going to turn into like this big thing. And because of my experience with all these people in like competitive gaming who were, as soon as like a little bit of money came into the picture, totally, you can't trust anyone else. You can't like give anyone else, have a real conversation with anyone, because they're going to use that like information against you for their own benefit. I mean, just like crazy. So kind of going through trial by fire, like in this competitive gaming world, made me really look at the people that I talk to and where I spend my time.
Okay.
after I started the business, and you really need like a sixth sense of like, are these people, even when someone, maybe is like, whether they're trying to take from you or whether they're trying to give from you, are they too giving or they're too taking? Like, what's going on? What's their motivation here? And it sucks that I have to go through those calculations now every time
Right.
I meet like a new group or a new party, but that's kind of what I've just been trained to do from like all these really bad experiences. And now I can direct my energy with the company in like areas that are only positive. I don't have to deal with negative people in my life.
Well, and that's really good, and that leads us to points 2 and 3, which we have to cover really quickly. But be authentic, and kind of you were referring to this, solve someone else's problem. So the two of those combined with your others, surround yourself with good people, kind of makes a package for yourself where you feel comfortable and reliable, and you feel that you can really make some good accomplishments. So would you say that sums up kind of your top 3, and that those are strategies that we all can follow?
Yeah, I think so.
Regardless of whether it's in business or in personal life, surrounding yourself with good people, being authentic, and helping other people solve other people's projects or problems.
Yeah, problem, yeah.
Really seems to say a lot about that person and
Yeah.
about you.
I've seen entrepreneurs like kind of disagree with me, but I've never really got a good reason why. I think like anything you want to do on your own, just solve a problem for someone else, and like you'll probably figure out a way to make money off of that, basically. But if you're solving a genuine problem for somebody, there's probably money in it somewhere. So instead of just thinking about like, oh, what's going to make me the most amount of money, just like solve a problem for somebody,
Well,
and you'll be able to come up with a product or a service or like something.
And as a person, you feel good just on a personal level that you have helped another person.
Yeah, and that's like the authenticity. Like, have you ever read Catcher in the Rye? Yeah, I think it's really tough for kids now with the constant pressure of social media to put on like a public face for like everything that you do, and that Colden, like his concept of like phony, like phonyism is kind of like lost on like this generation that's coming up a little bit. And I just think like it's way easier to live your life just not having an agenda for everything that you do, or all your relationships or transactional relationships with like other
Right.
people. I think you'll just be way happier. Just be yourself, and everything that you do doesn't have to be motivated by fame or like power or like money. You can really learn a lot from people, seeing where they spend their time when they're not getting paid for it, I think. And good things will happen, I think, if you do those 3 things.
I agree.
I hope.
And Chris, that's a good place to leave it. Thank you so much for being here today. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much, Doug.